So, welcome guys to Purpose's Opinion. And on this video, I will talk to you guys about a very interesting topic, which is how debt kills a country, kills the country's currency, sovereignty, you name it, right? And I'll go through a very interesting timeline to explain what happened in the past and what the future might look like for the debt burdened economies of the world, right? So, first of all, um, I've made some videos about this topic in the past, but I guess they were not extensive, right? And so now I'll go into a very extensive explanation. So, and look, this video is important for several different reasons. And so, yeah, you guys can see my screen. And yeah, now you might ask yourself, why is this topic important to me? How will I benefit from knowing about this? I think most people don't understand, like, we are going through a historical time period. Our generation, the generation that's gonna live in the next 30 to 50 years, they're gonna see the decline of the Western world. And so, in order to understand the decline, this debt topic is very important. So, it is important to you, for it's gonna impact every aspect of your life. If you either live in the Western country, or you're aligned with the Western economies through your job, business, whatever ways, right? So this video is actually, it is useful and relevant to a wide variety of different types of people. So yeah, if you guys can see my screen, yeah. So debt, the silent killer of nations, how sovereign debt destroys economies and currencies. So countries in debt distress right now, 70 plus. So in case you guys don't know, there's around 180 countries, right? So close to 50% of the countries are in debt distress, according to the IMF. So sovereign defaults since 1815 are 221. So there have been 221 sovereign defaults since 1815. And the global debt is $315 trillion, which is almost four times the global GDP, right? Crazy. Let's go to this next slide. Yeah. So what is sovereign debt? So money a government borrows to fund spending beyond tax revenues, issued as bonds to domestic and foreign investors, multilateral institutions, IMF, World Bank, and foreign governments. Right. So, okay, give me one sec. So the domestic debt, that's the debt in the bonds in the local currency, can be monetized by printing, right? Risk of inflation and currency debasement. External debt, the foreign currency bonds, right? Cannot print to repay unless you are the country of those major currencies like USD, European Union. Fatal when forex rate collapses, right? Yeah. Then you have the debt to GDP ratio. Yeah, key risk indicators. So you have greater than 90%. Debt to GDP means the danger zone. Greater than 120%. Debt to GDP ratio means severe stress per IMF research. So you look at the country, Sudan, 272% debt to GDP, Japan at 237, Greece at 154, US at 124, Sri Lanka at 119. Okay, now try to understand what this means. So you have a government, It's supposed to get revenue from taxing people and companies, and it's supposed to spend that money as a government. But when you, as a government, you're spending more than you're getting from people and the companies that you're taxing, then you need debt. So why does, I mean, Sudan, okay, I get it. It's a third world country in Africa, fuck it. But Japan, Great, I mean, USA, Japan, these are all modern economies. Why do they have such high debt to GDP ratio? Like USA, Japan, they're known for an efficient tax collecting system, right? So why is their debt to GDP so high? I mean, USA, I guess they do fund a lot of wars, so I get that. But what about Japan? Like, why is their debt to GDP so high? And again, it comes down to lower workforce to tax because Japan has an aging population. A lot of people like went into retirement or will go into retirement in the next few decades. So you have a lower workforce to tax from, to collect tax from. And yeah, you have a weak economy as a result of your aging population. So you have to lower your taxes on your companies in order for them to stay in a weak economy. And thus you have to borrow more money to fund your government. And that's what happened with Japan. Here's a similar story, right? But USA obviously they have the dollar reserve currency. But again, if you look at US's total debt, it's around 39, 40 trillion dollars, right? And most of the debt is issued to domestic lenders. Okay, most of America's government debt is held by local people, the local institutions and the local people in America. The risk of that is you'll end up printing a lot of US dollar to pay back those debts, and so it will turn into inflation and currency debasement, right? And but again, it comes to the question still persists, like why is US's debt to GDP more than 100%? Like it makes no sense. Like they have such an efficient tax system. Yeah, they have an aging population, but the immigration system is so good. So that shouldn't impact uh their economy that much. But in terms of USA, the problem there is that they're funding way too many wars, because when the empire ends towards the end, the new people come in, they challenge the old empire, in this case, China and Russia and Middle East, Iran, right? And so a lot of money is going into those wars for USA to just prove to the rest of the world that they're still the top G, basically. So let's go to the next one. So the five stages of the debt spiral. So the manageable borrowing, that's the first stage. So the debt to GDP is around 40 to 60%, right? Growth covers interest, productive investment funded, economy expands. The second stage is the crowding out private sector. So the debt to GDP is 80% plus. Rising interest rate, private investment falls 33 cents per $1 of deficit, according to CBO. So this is interesting. In the second phase, where your debt to GDP is around 80%, yeah, you have the interest rates rising, obviously, but the private investment, every time you increase your deficit by $1, your private investment falls by 33 cents. This is interesting, right? Because of the high debt to GDP ratio, people just don't want to invest in those countries because they know they'll be eventually taxed at a very high rate in order for the government to cover their lending spree, if that makes sense. So the third stage is the interest trap, right? So you have the debt to GDP 100% plus. US paid around $1 trillion in fiscal year 2025, more than defense plus Medicare, blah blah blah. No escape without growth. Hmm. And this is where USA is basically stuck because they're not growing, and that's why they're not escaping this debt trap. And then the fourth step, and this is the step that USA will take, in my opinion, in the next few years. That is currency monetization. Print money to service debt. Money supply exceeds output. Inflation accelerates. Currency collapses versus USD. Okay. So, yeah, in terms of USA, the currency of USD will collapse, right? So it's all about race to the bottom, right? Who can destroy, debase their currency first, right? And get something out of it in return. And then the final stage, you have step five, right? Sovereign default and collapse. Missed bond payments, credit collapse, GDP contracts 20% in 10 years, generation of poverty. So that's the final step after your currency monetization, and your currency is no longer holding any significant intrinsic value. So those are the five stages. A lot of countries are now in the third to fifth stage. So yeah, interesting. Let's keep going, right? How debt murders the currency, right? The quantity theory of money. So money, monetary value equals to PQ. When money supply rises faster than real output, prices must rise. Currency purchasing power collapses. Okay. Debt in own currency can print to pay. Inflationary but survivable. Right. Inflationary but survivable. Emerging market forex step must earn hard currency, cannot print. Lebanese pound lost 98% versus USD since 2019 debt spiral. So currency collapses. Let's look at some example. Argentine peso, 99%, Zimbabwean dollar, 100%, abandoned 2009, Lebanese pound, 98%, Turkish lira, 80%, Venezuelan bolivar, 96%. Here's an interesting part. Turkish lira has lost 80% in the last 6 years. But the country, if you look at their defense sector, if you look at the manufacturing, their nuclear sector, their energy sector, those are all growing at rapid pace. Same with India. You have a rupee that's collapsing against the dollar, but you have a country that's growing rapidly because they're taking advantage of this debasement. Okay. The idea is very simple. You have a strong military, you default on your loans eventually, and before you do that, you debase your currency to a point where there's no return. And you use this advantage of debasement to just fund government important projects. And that's basically what Turkey is doing, India is doing. They're funding government important projects like the military, like the energy sector, like uh yeah, uh technology sectors. And they're willing to sacrifice their currency to fund these sectors because they realize USA is doing the same. So it's all, like I said, it's all a race to the bottom. Who can get there first? Right? It's a Ponzi scheme. You wanna get out. You don't want to be the last one standing in a Ponzi scheme. Right? So you wanna get out before the rest. And how do you do that? You debase your currency first. And that's what smart people are doing. Russia, India, China, not so much because China wants to be the next reserve currency. It's they have a different plan. But Turkey, right? Japan, for example. So this is interesting. Own like 85% of the countries of the world have, like, out of all the debt, sovereign debt in the world, 85% of the debts are issued in own currency. So when this total like debt repayments will come due, the debasement will happen fast among all these currencies because look at it, 85%. 85% of all the sovereign debt around the world is in your own currency. And then the emerging market forex debt. And that's 45% of the emerging market debt. This is interesting, right? Because emerging markets, their currency is weak to begin with. There's not much firepower to debase any further. And so 45% of the forex uh, emerging market debt is in hard currency. And that's why emerging markets are so obsessed with selling to Europe and USA because they need to earn those hard currencies to pay back those forex debt. So you understand the importance of this video. Like you understand why certain countries behave certain way and what the thought process is behind that behavior. Okay? Nations killed by debt. Every hyperinflation traces back to the same root. A government printing money to service debt it could not fund through taxation. So the Weimar in Germany and yeah, World War II reparation debt, mark printing prices doubled, banknotes burned as fuel. Hungary 1946, World War II debt, unlimited printing. And yeah, Zimbabwe, again, fiscal deficit, money printing. Argentina, peso loss 99%. Sri Lanka, reserves strained, central bank printed money, president fled. All right. Lebanon, banking collapse, citizens locked out, 90% poverty. Yeah. The interest trap, feeding the beast. For every dollar of deficit spending, private investment falls by 33 cents. High debt governments experience deeper recessions with slower recoveries. Very basic stuff, right? So the crowding out effect, every dollar paid in interest is a dollar not invested in infrastructure, education, or R&D. Compound effect destroys future productivity, right? Basic stuff. Global debt danger matrix. Cost referencing debt to GDP with interest to revenue and forex reserve. The three key metrics that predict default risk, right? Interest to revenue and forex reserve coverage. Yeah. So let's look at Japan. Yeah. Even though they have a high debt to GDP, their forex reserves and interest to revenue are very low, very good, solid. So risk level is moderate. Well, yeah, USA interest revenue debt to GDP. I mean, their forex, it's a reserve currency. So it's elevated, but the reserve currency status is what's saving it. Greece, risk level is extremely high, right? Argentina, same stuff. Lebanon, same stuff, collapsed. So Japan and USA is only saved by their forex reserve being high in Japan and USA being the reserve currency. Otherwise, they're going through the same path, down the same path as the rest. When is debt safe? Five survival rules. Um, so yeah, I'll just take a break here. I'll be back. I'll take a short break and I'll be. So welcome guys. Let's get back to our video and let's finish this topic that we've been talking on, right? So yeah, I think you guys can see my screen right now. So when is debt safe, right? So the five survival rules. So Japan has 237% debt to GDP, survives because it borrows in yen, owns 90% domestically, and the world trust is central bank. Structure matters infinitely more than the number. So rule number one, borrow in your own currency, right? Rule number two, GDP grows faster than the interest rate. Japan is not doing well in this. Rule number three, independent central bank. Okay. Rule number four, high domestic saving space. 90% debt is domestically held, no foreign creator flight risk. Domestic creators rarely trigger sudden stops, right? Rule number five, borrow for productivity, not consumption. Infrastructure, education, R&D debt. These all generate GDP to repay itself, right? Debt for consumption, subsidies, and transfers creates pure liability with zero return. Uh, So, yeah, next topic. It always happens gradually, then all at once. Ernest Hemingway on bankruptcy, right? Also applies to sovereign debt collapse. The process, borrow, interest rate, monetize, inflate, currency collapse, default, a lost decade of poverty every time, right? The victims, citizens who trusted the currency, savers whose life savings vanished overnight. 100 million plus pushed into poverty per episode. The defense, fiscal discipline, independent central banks, productive debt use, grow faster than you borrow. Act before the spiral starts, right? So, yeah, that's it, guys, for this one. I'll come back with another video pretty soon. And yeah, until then, good luck, goodbye, and I'll see you guys